So let's talk about If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. Um, I'm trying to put myself in your shoes when you first read that script. What was your gut reaction when you read that script?
Um, my gut reaction, I still remember like reading the first page and being like, it felt incredibly. What I read really reflected the film you see in that it's like disorienting. You're like, where am I? What's happening? Who's this character? And it's slowly more information comes in, and so it's compelling. I was like, I was intrigued, and then there was a lot of horror in there too. Like, but then there was very dark comedy. Like I could find places to laugh. Um, and it touches on sort of more existential kind of ideas in the film, in the screenplay. And what struck me also was the symmetry of the screenplay, what is reflected in front of her, what's in her mind, what's not in her mind, but what's in front of her, and how she can't see what's in front of her. So and the sort of circuitous nature of therapy was very much in the screenplay. So I was sort of, my breath was taken away, and it also read like fire. Like I just sped through it, and several times had to go back to check, oh, she's a therapist? Hold on a second, these beats that so it was really like nothing I'd read before. It was very unique. And then I gave it to Bobby, my husband, and he's always my first sounding board. And he was like, "Oh, she's got something to say, Mary Bronstein. You should you should you should talk to her, like, find out what this is."
Did you have a
So
sense, I need to do this?
I did, and I thought, but I was like, "Oh gosh, where to begin?" I was like, this is incredible. And then once I spoke to Mary Bronstein, it's her story. She's spoken about this too, but her daughter was ill for a while, and this is what they went through at a certain point in their life. So that made it even more, kind of to be the avatar for her to tell part of her version of this experience. But like any actress, you go, what a gift. Like, how could I not do this? Like, why wouldn't I do this? I just didn't want to mess it up.
Yeah. It's exciting and petrifying at the
Yeah.
same time.
All the things. Yeah. All the things. Yeah.
Were you able to shake, Linda, at the end of the day?
My adrenaline, forgive me, was very high. So I was just sort of a bit paranoid, like the character, I think, and constantly checking in with Mary. She was my lifeline, my touchstone. And we had the gift, Mary and I, of a rehearsal period of like 5 or 6 weeks where I would just go over to her house and was sat at her kitchen table for 3 days a week, and we just combed through the screenplay from the very first word and just shared stories. She was very candid with me about her experience. And I had 1,000,001 questions about this character and who was she before. We don't know anything about her, and how I respond to a crisis is very different to how she responds. The character has a lot of hostility, and why, and where is that coming from? Like, why is that her default? And so it was fun. It was but that was such a gift. I think without that, I would have been very untethered, because we got to set. We had 25 or 6 days to shoot the film, and it was very fast once we got 2 or 3 takes. So we had all the conversations we needed to have before we got there, and then it became about, right, what's the other act, of what's happening in the scene, because you can't make a decision until the other actor is in front of you anyway about what is, what's the scene about.
Right. And when I know you shot it so quickly.
Yeah, it was fast. Yes. Yeah.
But would you get on the phone with Bobby or see Bobby and he'd be like, "Hey, no, you're not her now. You be Rose."
I'd be like, where are you? I'm pretty good. I'm pretty church and state. I leave it at work. I try to very much leave it at work. I come home. I have little kids, and they're so sort of in the best way in the moment, and they're not somewhat disinterested in your day in the best way. Like they're very grounding, so you're immediately at home and you're back to your role as a parent. And I find that I like that, because then you just are in the moment. But then you lie in bed and you go through it in your head. And there was definitely some days that were harder than other. And the anticipation of certain sequences would make me worried. Yeah.
You'd be up thinking about it.
Yeah, the sequence on the beach obviously was a huge sequence and very physical. And when you're dealing with the elements like that, that was very ambitious. But in a way, I think the first day was the hardest, because you're establishing tone, relationship. I was doing a scene with Mary Bronstein, who plays Dr. Spring in the film. the camera was getting, so that for me was I think the scariest day. I was very, very nervous. Yeah.
And then you got in the groove.
And then I got somewhat in the groove. Yeah. But the adrenaline definitely helped me kind of just carry me through.
We'll come back, but I want to go back and start about your beginnings. You started acting professionally at a fairly young age. Was there ever any thought of another path, or was it always acting?
Yeah, it's funny when you start that young, there's definitely a moment in your life where you reassess. And for me, that was probably, I was around 18 or 19. I went to university, I went to Sydney University. I did an arts degree. I didn't finish it, but, and I think that's when I sort of took stock and I was like, am I fulfilled this, trying to pursue this pretty hard career? It's like the odds aren't great for an actor, like of actually making a living. And I did. And I was like, I'm taking stock. I want to, I love this, and I started very young, and it's a different thing when you start so young. It's sort of, but that was sort of the point when I was about 18, 19 that I was like, no, I do want to try to do this, and yeah, for me. But I started acting classes when I was 8. Yeah, in Australia at the Australian Theatre for Young People.
Do you remember that initial feeling that made you say, I need to do this?
I mean, I just loved it. I loved it. It was so fun. I mean, it's fun for any child. It's so imaginative. It builds your confidence. It's like you're with friends. It's play, and that's what, so many children, it's all about. They say with parenting, play is the way to communicate and to a bit of discipline and all that sort of stuff. So, but for me, it was absolutely a joy and creative. And I immediately was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. And then a casting agent came to one of my acting for the camera classes, and that's how I got on lists and auditioned and got parts. And yeah, so it was.
And it was around that time that you were deciding, yes, I want to do this for real. You were 18,
yeah,
19.
about 18, 19, yeah.
That was when you got Two Hands.
Yes, so I booked a film called Two Hands with a young Heath Ledger. So he was coming off of a TV show in America called Roar, and this very talented filmmaker, Gregor Jordan, had written this very cool screenplay, and he had a great eye for casting and knew Heath was his guy, and he came in, and then, we did this film, Two Hands, with Brian Brown, another wonderful Aussie actor, and then that film kind of took off in Australia, and then we went to Sundance, and my life really changed,
It was life-changing?
It really was. I mean, Heath was very instrumental. He would introduce me to casting agents and get me in on the books, and
he kind of shepherded you along.
Very
as best
supportive.
he
He was
could.
very generous. Yeah, he had a very generosity of spirit, Heath, and he had a big house where we would all used to congregate, all the Aussies.
Would you sleep on his couch sometimes?
We all would. I mean, my friend Joel Edgerton was there, and Nash Edgerton, his brother, my friend Kit Gurry, like all these young actors were out there. And Heath would be off working, and we would often be up at the house. Like this was early days, but that's kind of. I think when you come from far away from Australia and it's a very small population, you hang on to people you meet along the way, and you help each other out. And that film got me to the States and got me an agent, and I got to start to audition over here. But it was years of going back and forth. I would work in Australia, and then I slowly and I eventually booked a job. I booked a job over here. Yeah, when I was about 23, I think. Yeah.
And pretty early on, you were in some big films. I mean, Star Wars.
Blink and you'll miss me. That was I'm a handmaiden, but it is amazing to be just even a tiny microcosmic tiny bit. I'm not talking about it, a tiny little beat in that universe is wild. It is such a religion for people. Obviously, that Star Wars world and legacy, and it's so far-reaching, and has captured the imaginations of. I think myself now, having little boys, I understand it better because it just captures your imagination as a little boy and a little girl. But in my case, being the mother of boys, I really see it now and can understand like how it works.
Do your boys think you're extra cool? Because even if you're just in it for a moment.
I think I got a few points, but I'm so quick. I think they're like, "Was that you? Did really?" And then they move on. But it was fun. It was fun.
And then you're in this other huge picture, Troy.
Yes. Yeah.
What are your memories of that?
I remember I was on set in Montreal, and I got a call like, "You got the part," and I had like read with Brad, and he was such a gentleman. And I couldn't believe it. That was a huge deal. Obviously, that was in the days of those big kind of epic period pieces. It was around the time of, like, I think Alexander had been made. It was like obviously based on the Iliad, but it was this huge historical epic filmmaking piece directed by Wolfgang Petersen, which is rare. They don't make them that much these days. So it was very much of a time. And then, I was whisked away to Malta and London and Mexico, and it was a huge budget and production. And I'll never forget it. Yeah, absolutely. Wild experience for coming from sort of indie film in Australia. And
Yeah. And I mean, you're in this very famous scene of Brad
Yes.
taking off his
I
clothes.
know. I know. Very focused on the scene, tied up, like crying.
Yeah, no one focuses on
I
him
know.
anyway. They're
Little
watching
did I realize
you.
I was taking my role very seriously, as you should. But everyone's just like, how about the movie star with no clothes on? But it was it's played a lot, that movie too. It's always on a loop. It's like it's always on channels. It's a fun film. It's got really good action in it, and it's very dramatic.
Do you stop to watch it if it
No,
comes
oh
around?
God, no, I haven't seen it. I'm a baby. Oh my gosh, I look like I'm like 15 or like really fresh faced and young, and yeah.
So you had those two. You did Maria Antoinette
Yes,
with
Marie Antoinette, yeah.
Sofia Coppola,
Sophia,
but you
yeah.
really made your mark here in TV
Yes,
when
I did.
Damages came along.
Absolutely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
What was it like to have that steady gig and such a great gig?
It was incredible. We came out the same year as Mad Men, so it was sort of HBO had set the bar already with like Sopranos and 6 Feet Under, but it was still like Netflix hadn't started, like House of Cards hadn't come out yet, so it was very much the early days of that renaissance of television before it became this extraordinary thing we have now, where the quality is so huge and movie stars are doing TV, and it was still that early sort of renaissance of storytelling on television, and I couldn't believe I got to watch Glenn Close work and be in scenes with her where she would be terrorizing me and creating this character with the creators, with KZK, Todd and Glenn Kessler and Daniel Zellman. They really were collaborative and wanted to come up with this young ingenue between us and figure out who she was and get to see Glenn work. And God, she works so hard too. She's one of our greats. And she works so hard. Her attention to detail is unparalleled, and she's taught me a lot. And we're still very close, and she's been very supportive. But that was a huge turning point for sure, doing that show, and just the hours you clock. It's a very rigorous schedule, and the serialized nature of storytelling. You get an intimacy with your character that I hadn't really had before, and then I got to live in New York, so it was game changing.
After 5 seasons of Damages, did you feel like you were starting to get kind of pigeonholed as a serious actress?
That's a good question. I think I did. I made a very active, attempt to be like, I would love to audition for comedy. I would love to. I think, once you get pigeonholed in one thing of doing a very serious, lawyer who's pursuing justice and, has an earnest quality to her. So I was desperate to try to do something else. Like any actor, I think you're always trying to pivot, and be like, oh, okay, I learned quickly you will get, that's the roles they're going to try to, send to you or audition you for in the future. And how can I change that? So I tried. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Bridesmaids.
I know.
Oh
Yeah,
my goodness.
I know.
The thing, and I think you've talked about this, but Bridesmaids is huge. The annoying thing that came along with it was this idea like, wow, women can be funny, that kind of undercurrent that went with its success. Did that bother you?
I was very naive. I did not realize we would be getting asked that question 1,000 times. We didn't even talk about it. You never know. You just can't anticipate ever how a project will be received or if it will have a success, obviously. And that film really took off in a way none of us had expected. And then, we were just on constant conversation about that. And I really lent on, on Kristen and Maya and Melissa and Wendy and Ellie, who had come from more traditional comedy backgrounds of how to deal with that. But I remember at one point, I think it was Maya or someone saying, we're not a group of dolphins. I don't know why this is such a big deal. Someone said that at one point on the press tour, and I kind of just lent on them for that because I was a little naive around it. I didn't expect it would be such a point of conversation. Yeah.
Can you remember what was going through your head writing this wave of Bridesmaids?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was really joyful. I was so I'm such a fan of those girls anyway, so it was joyful for me to be part of it. And I think the film is a little bit magic and the stars really lined up. And so it felt like a wild roller coaster, but it was, I think for Kristen would have been, not to speak to her, but, she wrote the film. So for her, I can't imagine how that would have been. But it was joyful and amazing. And we all really got along really well, and that's lovely. And that, that's not always the case. I'm sure you've had a million actors in this chair of like the experience you have doesn't always reflect what how the film's received, or rarely does. And for me, it was both. It was a joyful experience shooting it and then having the success of it. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Yeah, I was really lucky.
Then you did 2 Neighbors comedies.
Yes. Yeah.
And did you have any input as far as making this wife not the nagging wife? She's part of the fun.
Yeah. No, that was a very early on. And I also learnt that really from Paul Feig too, because he was he's so brilliant with actresses, Paul Feig, the director of Bridesmaids, and also Spy, another, very funny comedy I did with Paul and Melissa McCarthy. And he spoke to that early on of like how women are often pigeonholed in broader comedies as being nagging or they're not fun and all this kind of stuff. And so going into Neighbours, it was very much a conversation I had early on with Nick Stoller and with Seth Rogen about these characters are a pair. They're kind of as ridiculous as one another. They're as like stupid as one another, and she's actively not going to be that, and it's going to be they're a pair and they're actually a happily married couple. And they really love each other and they're a team. And so that we really lent into that. And again, it was a great, Seth and I immediately had a good sort of chemistry and understood the rhythms of each other's comedy, I guess. Like I'm sort of more of the straight man in that, but like that's an important role, and setting up jokes for him and him for me. So we immediately had a good understanding. And that's hard. That's a bit like lightning in a bottle, It's like, it doesn't always happen.
Why do you think you and Seth click?
I don't know. I don't know. People ask that. It's an odd thing. I mean, he's Canadian. I'm Australian. We're from the Commonwealth, but we just have an easy rapport like that, which is why we wanted to reunite on Platonic. I was like, how can we work together again? What can we find that is similar but different? And that was really fun opportunity because it's about a friendship. So something that's not as typically examined, particularly in sort of a television format like that. So, but I was really lucky. Yeah, we immediately had a nice rapport. Yeah.
For you, it's just so interesting, this arc of starting out as the serious actress, wanting to break into comedy, and now here you're getting all this recognition as the serious actress again. It's like a full circle moment, I guess.
I know. I mean, I love performances that have both, that are because the stakes have to be really high in comedy to make it funny, and comedy's so hard because just most comedians are very serious. They're not particularly funny people, and if you're a funny person doesn't mean you're a funny actor. So it's a very strange alchemy of what makes it, I think. So for me with Legs, it's obviously very dark humor in there, but I love that sort of stuff. So whatever that speaks to of my preferences, but I felt there was a lot of opportunity in there to find the beats of her how delusional the character is, and like where those beats could be, have a moment of release for the audience to laugh. Yeah.
And you're right. It's kind of your two worlds combining into one, the serious and the comedic.
A little bit. I mean, yes, it's like, it's what comedy's so hard too. It's very subjective, like what you think's funny, I might not, whereas dramatically, we can all sort of agree what is sad, but I do think Legs rides that fine line of tension and then a release, and then through laughter, and then tension, high tension, and then some relief. So, but that's why it's so scary and fun. That's tightrope, trying to ride that tightrope.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're all there right with you. When you won the Golden Globe, I know you're a great actress, but you seem genuinely surprised.
I was. Yeah, that was extraordinary. It was oh my gosh, those performances, the actresses in my category. I saw Cynthia Erivo do The Color Purple on Broadway, and it was a religious moment. She's extraordinary, that woman, and all of the women in that category. So I really was very surprised, and my speech was ridiculous, and I was like totally unprepared.
It was wonderful. It was
Aw.
actually so real. And everybody wanted to know about the bearded dragon.
I know. Oh my God, never in my life will I announce something like that again at an awards show. But I was truly just so shocked, and it was great. My brother that was there, George, and he's so grounding, and it was. But those things are heady, and I hadn't been to an event like that for a while, but it was very meaningful. Our film is a small film. We didn't have a big budget for press. And so for it to have reached that far and to get that acknowledgement, really, it's just a reflection of the film to me. The character is the film and the film is the character. So I feel I just share it with Mary Bronstein. She directed the hell out of this movie.
Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it seems like an extreme act of love to skip the Golden Globes and go get a bearded dragon
But
with
that's
your
what
kids.
you do, when you're just juggling. Like in the film, you're constantly trying to, nourish your home and nourish your work. It's that thing that David Sedaris says, right? Of all the burners in your life, like this could be going well, relationships, but work is not great, or your health is suffering, but this is really good. So it's just trying to keep all the burners alive, and obviously being a parent is your number one, and building these little people is obviously the greatest role and challenge and all the things. But yeah, it's like any working parent. You're always trying to juggle the Animal Expo with with whatever. I mean, that's a bit extreme, but I always put it in perspective. I think it's my Australian nature, staying grounded.
Do your kids have a sense of what's happening
Yeah,
now?
no, they're really cute. They're totally celebratory. No, they are. It's like a perfect balance of being curious. They have great questions. They're so brilliant, but also a healthy. And then we move on. So I appreciate that because it's so grounding, because this stuff is consuming, and it's the most grounding sort of force field to have is your family. Yeah.
Do they understand what an Oscar nomination
Yeah, they're
is?
cute. No, they're so excited. They're very cute about it, and I think, yeah, no, of course they do. My elder one, my 10-year-old, is a real cinephile, and he loves movies, so he's got more of a curiosity. But we move on quickly. I try not to make it all about, and it's good. So it's not a consuming thing in the house. They've got a healthy understanding, but they're so in the moment, children, so keeps you in the moment.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Will everyone be here for the Oscar nomination?
I hope so. Yeah, we'll figure it. It's the juggle of the weekend, but yeah, it's all kind of coming together. What are we, a month out? So I guess I'm day by day piecing it all together. I don't know yet what I'm wearing or what this or that or anything like that, but yeah, it's fun. I went once before. We presented the cast of Bridesmaids in 2012, and Billy Crystal was the host, and it was so magical. It's one of the few shows we got in Australia growing up. We
So
got
you remember
Letterman.
watching it?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like we got shows, but we didn't get everything, and so it was like we got Letterman and we got the Oscars. So it was the pageantry of it is so fun, and the theatricality. So I'll be enjoying it.
And have a speech
I
somewhere.
know. I'll have a long one. I'm going to write pages, write it ready to go. Yeah, we'll see. Yeah.
Did you, starting out or even along this journey, did you dream of getting nominated for an Oscar, winning an Oscar?
I love that question. And of course, there is a magical quality to it. And of course, you have those imaginative dreams as a little girl watching the show. And of course, you do. And I agree with Jacob Elordi. I think if you don't admit that, then it's not. Of course, you do. It is a part of the kind of part of the fantasy or whatever it may be, and it's it would come and go and all that sort of stuff, but I think there is an element to it that is absolutely magical, and you're like, oh my gosh, to have got that far is really to remember those feelings and be like, oh my God, that's incredible. That is, it's so wild to get to this position and to enjoy that, because it's gosh, what are we here doing? What are we doing here? That's
Yeah, is there a part of you that's steps back and goes, whoa, this is all happening?
I think there's a natural inventory where you're like, wow, and you do look back and you sort of reflect a little bit. And I'm 46. I can't imagine being Jacob, who's 27, so young, or all the young actors who've been, Mikey Madison, she's so, I can't imagine at such a young age having that. That is very heady and very, so I think for me, I'm grateful that I'm who I am now, and I have a family, and there's a real line in the sand before and after you become a parent. So I think it would be far headier being younger and having this attention. But at my age, I think it's something I can appreciate and have, and also like have a good and understand the randomness of it too. Like have a perspective on it that only comes as getting older. So it's like, but by the same token, to just celebrate and enjoy it, you know. So it's both. Mm.
And you touched on this, but how did having kids change how you looked at work?
It's just such a line in the sand of before and after, and your priorities just shift. They naturally shift. Of course, you have this little person and you're trying to balance it all. So you're more discerning, you're more, you know, it's way more, I'm married to an actor. So it's like all of those things of like always trying to juggle, how do we feed both parts of our life? And sometimes it's really hard, and it's always like, how do you do both? I'm always asking other actor couples, like, how do you do it? And everyone's trying to figure it out and ask each other. But I think it's community. I think it's building your community in your neighborhood and your friends, your family, all the people you lean on to build a community around your family and your children. So, but there is obviously everything shifts once you have children of your priorities, of what you really want to do and what you really can do, and letting and knowing if something doesn't come your way or doesn't work out, that it's okay, you know. And that's, for me, has been such a grounding force field. Yeah.
Have you said no to more things?
Of course, absolutely. No, things won't work out, or I can't do it, or you know, for sure. And made mistakes along the way, always making mistakes. That didn't, or I should have pushed for this more or that more, or I should have said no, or I should have said yes. I was as imperfect as the next person of trying to figure it out. Yeah.
It's not easy.
No, it's not.
And you just mentioned this, so now I want to ask about it. What's the best part of being married to an actor, and what's the not so good part about being married to an actor?
I'm going to say all positive. I think, you know, it's always that thing. Obviously, I'm an Australian. You know, we're obviously so different. So that's great. That keeps it interesting. And then I think there's a great sounding board and a creative conversation that you can have when you're married to an artist and an actor. And I have such respect for Bobby. He does a lot of theater, so that's always something I lean on him with. And he has great intuition about work and material, and he's always my first port of call for like of what you think, you know, in your gut of stuff. He's very intuitive, and that's so that for me it's been a positive. And I think because we're so different, it still makes it interesting, you know. Like I think that's like any couple, right? There's always one that's always I think that difference keeps it interesting. Yeah.
You're different how?
Well, I'm Australian. He's from various parts, you know. He grew up in Jersey and Florida and Puerto Rico. He's like, and I think that's, you know, he's Italian American. I'm Irish Australian. So you're married to an Italian American, I just discovered. But I think that probably, you know, the similarity of being creative and loving the arts, and like, you know, our favorite thing to do is like go see a play if we can. Like we love doing that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I feel lucky to have that sounding board. Yeah.
And if he would have read If I Had Legs and said, you
Yeah.
need to pass,
Yeah.
you think you...
I would absolutely, of course, no, I would be like, let's have a conversation about it, totally. And like, and also you respect how that person feels, you know, like if you show your friends something and they, you know, that means a lot and they're sensitive, you're sensitive to that. So there's that part of the conversation too. But yeah, and we have similar tastes, I think, as well. We know what, you know, and Bobby's really funny. He understands comedy. He's really funny. So and I think it's also, you know, what the other person doesn't like, you know, and it's important to have arguments about that too. And like creative conversations. It's like, I think that's and also a healthy part of a creative conversation. Yeah, whether it's with him or with my agent or whoever, like you've got to have that dialogue around it so you can understand different perspectives of why you choose to do a job. Yeah.